Hello, America! And anyone else watching? Welcome back to Using Social Media Polls, because this is the third time I've done this, so I guess it's a series. A while ago, I compiled an Excel spreadsheet with all 50 US states in it. I then broke them up into brackets using a random number generator, and asked you to vote for your favorite using the most credible source of gathering information: Instagram polls. Thank you for voting. This was a very fun game, and the results will shock you. Enough messing around, let's compare giant plots of land. To even it out in the spreadsheet, I needed to do a little pre-round, so here it is. Ohio versus South Dakota. It's only the first poll, and this is already very difficult, because I have almost nothing to say about either of these states. Except this. Hey, what's round on the ends, high in the middle, and lost to South Dakota? Ohio. Washington versus Oregon. Washington wins, and it looks like Oregon won't be able to trail behind. Now that quick little pre-round is out of the way, it's time for round one. Alaska versus Florida. Alaska's cool, I guess, but it's like dark, like 3 or 4 months out of the year. Do you like Alaska? Or do you like the idea of Alaska? Hashtag deep. I really like Florida, but if we're honest with ourselves, we probably would have ceased from Florida by now if it wasn't for Disney World. Alaska wins this round, and Florida's out a lot sooner than I expected. Come on, guys! Disney World!
I just wish I was at Disney.
Arizona versus Massachusetts. I've been to Arizona once, and it was beautiful. I could not point to Massachusetts on a map for $1 million. Arizona wins this round, which I think it deserves. I still know nothing about Massachusetts. Arkansas versus Iowa. Arkansas wins. If I say something about every state, this is gonna take like 2 hours. Not every state needs a comment. California versus New Jersey. California not only wins this round, but it wins the award for second state that we probably wouldn't want to be affiliated with if it wasn't for Disney. Colorado versus Indiana. Sorry to the few people that voted for Indiana, but Colorado really deserves this one. I also don't know why it's so funny to me that the clip art for Colorado is just a square. Like, I knew it was square, but it's not until it's isolated that you really realize how square it is. Because it's just like, hey kids, look! It's Colorado! Connecticut versus Wyoming. Wyoming wins, as it should. I think. I don't know anything about Connecticut. Idaho versus Tennessee. So you're asking people to choose between potatoes or whiskey. Yeah, of course Tennessee won. Illinois versus Hawaii. Illinois never stood a chance against the powerhouse state that is Hawaii. Kansas versus Georgia. Georgia wins, but are you really that surprised? Maryland versus Kentucky. How bad is Maryland that you'd vote for Kentucky over it? Good grief. Minnesota versus South Dakota. I've been to Minnesota once or twice. I went to an information security conference with my dad in 2019, because I am so cool. Needless to say, it beats South Dakota, and I'm okay with it. South Dakota! Mississippi versus Nebraska. Mississippi wins. Montana versus Alabama. I used to have a corkboard that was shaped like Montana that a family member gave me because they didn't want it, and for whatever reason, I wanted it. I unfortunately could not find it for this video, but even without it, Montana wins. Nevada versus North Carolina. Well, North Carolina won, but I had some kind of graphics mix-up where I accidentally put the clip art for Georgia on there. Hey kids, look! It's North Carolina! Thankfully, I have a great community of people that can correct me on mistakes like this. A lot of people corrected me on this mistake. New Mexico versus Texas. The last time I went on a road trip and we drove through New Mexico, the traffic and construction was so bad that we were delayed 3 hours on the road. And it wasn't even a good 3 hours because there's nothing to look at. It's just the same desert. So yeah, I'm on the Texas side of this battle. New York versus South Carolina. Did you know there's a lot more to New York than Times Square and Jimmy Fallon? Apparently they have mountains and stuff. I think this is a contributing factor to it winning. Oklahoma versus Michigan. Michigan wins. Pennsylvania versus New Hampshire. Pennsylvania wins. Rhode Island versus North Dakota. In a very close battle, Rhode Island wins. Vermont versus Delaware. Pretty much everything I know about Vermont is from that one episode of Friends where Ross and Chandler go up to Vermont for the weekend and they just end up stealing a ton of stuff from the hotel.
God, I feel so alive. I love being in the country.
Based on that extensive research, I'm very glad Vermont won. Virginia versus Missouri. Virginia wins, and for good reason. I think you know something's up when your state is pronounced like misery. Washington versus Utah. I lived in Washington for a year, and that is one of the greatest places you could ever visit. And I'm glad you agree. Sorry, Utah, but can I make it up with this snow globe I got at the Salt Lake City airport? West Virginia versus Louisiana. I hear West Virginia is almost heaven, but apparently Louisiana's better? West Virginia, almost heaven. Louisiana, actual heaven. Wisconsin versus Maine. The only thing I really know about Wisconsin is that they like cheese, and it's that kind of goober behavior that makes us vote for Maine. Holy crap, that was a lot. But it's finally time for round 2. But first, a word from our sponsor. Me. I write, direct, star in, and write all these videos myself, so if you could please subscribe so I could afford a geography class, it would mean the world to me. It's time for round 2. Alaska versus North Dakota. Pour one out for North Dakota. They had no chance against Alaska. Arizona versus Minnesota. It's so hard when two states you've been to are put up against each other. But Arizona wins, and I agree. Colorado versus Wyoming. I don't think I've ever been to Wyoming. I've been to Colorado 1 or 2 times, and I think it's a really cool place to visit. Yeah, Colorado beat Wyoming, but can we talk about how cursed this is for a second? They're both so square. Oh man, fight night, square versus square. Who's gonna win? Pay-per-view, $175. Will probably end in 13 seconds. Hawaii versus Georgia. I'm starting to think some of y'all have never even been to Hawaii. You just think it sounds cool. Do you think Hawaii is a joke? Do you think you can just vote for it blindly? Apparently you do, because it destroyed Georgia. Kentucky versus Louisiana. Louisiana wins, but it's most likely because of the Popeyes propaganda. Or popaganda, if you will. Maine versus Pennsylvania. I've been to Pennsylvania once, and it's pretty cool. But those Cape Cod chips are so good. Oh, they're so crunchy and salty. Ugh, goosebumps. Yeah, Maine wins. Michigan versus Washington. Thank goodness Washington won, because it deserves to go all the way. Montana versus Mississippi. Montana wins again. This goes out to my Montana corkboard that I cannot find. New York versus Tennessee. I will say, if it wasn't for New York, we wouldn't have that incredible Jay-Z song with Alicia Keys. And what has Tennessee done for music? Nothing. Alright, so Tennessee won by a lot, but that Jay-Z song still slaps. North Carolina versus Arkansas. How North Carolina's still here beats me, but it still beat Arkansas. Texas versus California. These two powerhouse states going neck and neck is iconic, to say the least. And if we could choose people from 2 states to fight each other, I would definitely choose California and Texas. I was surprised to see Texas win, but they have a high population, so maybe they're just all voting. Vermont versus Virginia. With the difference of 1 vote, Virginia wins. Excuse me while I Google what's in Virginia. That's the end of round 2. Can you guess what time it is now? Time to do your laundry, time to get your life together, time to watch the 2019 comedy rom-com classic with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds, The Proposal? No, it's time for round 3. Alaska versus Maine. I don't know if Maine can win this one, but Alaska won. Hawaii versus North Carolina. Do I even have to say anything? Montana versus Arizona. These are 2 states I love very much, so for me this is like choosing a favorite child. But Montana wins. I love you, Arizona. Your state is just drier than my sense of humor, and I cannot afford that much chapstick. Tennessee versus Washington. These are both states that I love very much, even more than the first two. These are in fact my two favorite states that exist. I have lived in both of these states, go Seahawks 12. So for me, this is like choosing a favorite ice cream flavor. Good thing I'm not the one that has to vote. Tennessee wins, and I don't know if I agree. I love Tennessee with my whole heart. Washington's pretty cool though. Yeah, Washington has Seattle, the Space Needle, and the birth home of Starbucks. But have you been to the Tennessee Aquarium? It's pretty cool. Texas versus Louisiana. I've been to Texas a few times and I really like it there. So if voting for Texas is what it takes to put Louisiana in its place, then that's what I will do. Virginia versus Colorado. I still know very little about Virginia, so go Colorado! It's now time for round 4? This is the longest video ever. I've completely lost track of what we're doing here. It's time for round 4, the semifinals. Alaska versus Colorado. Two powerhouse states in this game going head to head. Who's gonna win? Alaska. Next, Hawaii versus Tennessee. And I'm sorry, Tennessee, you had a good run. You're no chance against Hawaii. They've got like beaches and I'm sure some other cool stuff. Volcanoes. I don't know, their food is really good. Pineapple. I like pineapple. It's just, I guess it just wasn't meant to be, you know? Like you fought hard, Tennessee, but you're just, like maybe next time. Like you're not really a match for Hawaii. What? I'm not even mad, I'm just kind of shocked. I'm just so proud of Tennessee because they were able to finally beat that island from that one episode of Full House.
7 days and 7 nights of non-stop family fun in Hawaii.
Texas versus Montana. I tried Montana corkboard, I tried. You sat in my closet for like 2 years, and then the second you have like an actual purpose, you're nowhere to be found. I'll always remember you. Alright, we have our top 3 states, Alaska, Tennessee, and Texas. The final round will go like this. Alaska versus Tennessee, Texas versus Alaska, and Tennessee versus Texas. And whichever state wins twice wins the whole thing. Alaska versus Tennessee. This one was pretty close, but Tennessee gets another point. Texas versus Alaska. Sorry to any Alaska fans out there, it's just like, you can't click away from the video yet because you beat Texas. So now it all comes down to Tennessee versus Texas. If Tennessee wins, it wins the whole game. If Texas wins, then they all got a point, and we're gonna have to do a tiebreaker. I have yet to need to do a tiebreaker in this series, but I'm really excited for that moment because it's gonna be great. So, Tennessee versus Texas. Is it gonna be Tennessee and it wins? Or is it gonna be Texas and we have to do some kind of tiebreaker? You don't know, but I do because I gathered all this data before I even filmed this, so like, it's called acting. The winner of using social media polls to find the best US state is... Tennessee. You heard it here, folks. The best state in the US, aside from denial, is Tennessee. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I agree. Tennessee has mountainscapes, larger city areas, incredible food, and weather on both sides of the spectrum depending on what time of the year it is. So for your next vacation, book Tennessee. That's why this video is sponsored by Expedia. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be pretty great though. Alright, this video is really long and took absolutely forever to edit, I'm assuming. I don't know. Hi, it's me from the future. I just wanted to confirm that yes, it did take forever to edit. So if you want to support me, the best thing you can do is hit that subscribe button. If you have any idea on what we should vote on next, feel free to drop it in the comments. I love doing this, I think it's a lot of fun, so I hope to do it again soon. Again, thank you for voting and engaging. I had a lot of fun, I hope you did too. Until the next video, bye!